wanting to extort money from him and all the
Bearing
drama.
hyenas.
All that drama, man.
The man.
All that drama over Paul Pogba, and we were left with a period without Paul Pogba. But now Pog back.
What up, what up, what up? Welcome to Tour Front. My name is Jay and I'm with Chuck.
Yes, sir.
Did you see the picture I got? Do you think those abs are fake? Think that man putting in the hours? Is he in the gym shooting? Or is he on a table getting that sculpted for him?
That's the last thing I thought we'd open with. But I saw someone comment to no triceps, no biceps, no what, but chiseled abs.
But then I saw like an Instagram fitness influencer like review the picture, and he was comparing Drake's like old abdomen to his new one, and then also comparing it to his own abdomen. This is the influencer. It's like, yeah, when people do get like surgical interventions for their abs, you can see this, that, and the other. Whereas he said the rest of Drake's physique seems to match his abs, and I was like, I don't know, man. I don't know. But I see collab. We here to talk about sport. And where we begin?
Same script, same cast, same story, same saga. Banyana Banyana on the eve of a big tournament, and Safa has dropped the ball once again. At this point in time, right, Jay, there seems to be some sort of agreement in terms of they're going to continue with the tournament. In fact, they played a friendly this Saturday, but initially they weren't paid their fees that were due to them for the months of April and May, and so they go into this WAFCON tournament to defend the actual thing without their monies being sorted out. Jay, why is it the same problem over and over again, number one? And two, where's the respect for the girls?
If nothing changes, Chuck.
Yeah.
The answer to your first question, why is it the same problem? Because we see the same people who are still in power, right? And I mean, this conversation has been dragged out in terms of it's time for new blood, it's time for new leadership, it's time to move in a different direction. If not that, it's time for a new mindset, and we saw Safa being dragged in front of the committee, and they were asked all sorts of questions and they couldn't account, and in terms of the financial situation, yeah, it read as a dire script, Yeah. And so when these matters come up, now you do have the context of the coffers are not quite good over there at Safa House, But at the same time, Chuck, it shouldn't be like this. It should never be like this, because the reason that Banyana Banyana had staged a sit-in and refused to train is because the monies that were owed to them were for games that they had already played, right?
Yeah.
It was the games against Malawi, it was the games in the Three Nations against Botswana and Zambia. And you know what? On the one hand, I commend our female football players, and I love that they are able to come together and be unified and take these steps. We remember what happened prior to the World Cup, right? And now again, and this is what I always say, Chuck, that you need to be able to organize. We're gonna have a conversation around the Club World Cup, and we heard the comments from the club, in terms of the load on the players, and we've heard from Kevin De Bruyne before, a similar conversation. But here we are playing the Club World Cup, and the solution to it is you need to organize and you need to be unified. You need to have a players' union, whatever the case may be, and come to an agreement that unless our demands are heard, we're not going to play because we are the product, right? And in terms of Banyana Banyana defending WAFCON champions, the pride of the nation, they're going to the WAFCON to try to defend, of course, and you can't have a situation whereby it might mess with them playing in the tournament. But here we are, and these are the lens that they continuously have to go to in order to get what is due to them. This is not greed. This is not them wanting a bigger piece of the pie than what is actually owed to them. And they can't even get that, Chuck. And when you see the unavailability of some of these players, Tembi Kgatlana is not at the WAFCON because of personal reasons. We don't know exactly what that is. We've heard Jermaine Sipasenyo saying that this is the last time she'll turn out for Banyana Banyana. She's retiring after the WAFCON. And we spoke about the fact that Nokumatlo also retired this year. Yes, she's 40, but she could have retired at 39. You know, she could have held out for a few more months. Why did she retire when she did? And you speak to people in the know, and you hear things, Shaq. You hear rumblings with regards to the unhappiness of Banyana Banyana players around the national team. You know, and it's sad. It really is sad for me to hear that time and again, like ahead of major tournaments, this is what happens, and these are the lens these girls have to implement again in order to get what is theirs.
I mean, I was saying to a friend of mine, right, Ikram Reina's won man of the match accolade, and we are in a 7 million rand. And I said to myself, joking, right, in jest, thank goodness there was not a Banyana Banyana match, because if that person was a Banyana Banyana player who had won the man of the match award with the money that's due to them, chances are somehow Tencho Run will find a way to withhold the money from them, because same thing with the World Cup, right? There was money due to the players, and somehow it went through some pipeline, some structure that it was delayed in terms of getting to the players, the money that belonged to the players. Jay, whenever we've seen these such protests, we've always said to ourselves initially, right, when we first heard of them with the African countries mainly, and it's happened with other nations as well, the players are being greedy. They earn enough in the clubs, what, why now? But when things happen over and over again, you realize that African football has a problem, number one. Number two, with Banyana Banyana, it's not the first time, like we said. This has to be their platform of protest, because if you protest, they'll find other girls. But if you get the squad ready and you're already there in Morocco and you're like, nope, we're not going to do it at the biggest stage, that's only when people will listen, because I don't think it's the first time they're having this conversation, which is Funi Maliet. They're protesting because they've said it once, twice, 3 times, and to no avail. The other thing, Jay, is that Desiree Ellis is still coaching without a contract, having spoken to Safa about this contract in June 2024.
14 months.
14 months, still waiting for it to be a valid thing, whereas you're our employee, you coach Banyana Banyana officially, here's your pay package, here are the terms and conditions of the contract. We don't know under what terms and conditions she's working.
I heard someone say, why doesn't she just walk away? What job? If you're being very honest, like what job is waiting for Desiree Ellis if she walks away from Banyana Banyana in terms of whatever pay package that she might be getting from Banyana Banyana? Perhaps, right? Opportunities might be there on the continent, but you've seen what happens in Nigeria. You know, you've seen what happens like in the other countries, and we don't think there's a PSL team or an NFD team that is waiting for a Desiree Ellis to become available, regardless of her accolades, and saying, "Come in and help us to our goals here on the men's side." You know, so. It's very easy to say, why doesn't she just walk away? But what kind of leverage does she have? Like, what does she have to fall back on if she walks away from this gig? You know?
I mean, her hands are firmly tied. She has to then continue soldiering on, because if she doesn't, like you said, where will she find her employment? And the other thing, J-Man, it's all these people who've done well. I get it if it was Team X that didn't do anything, but these are defending WAFCON champions. They've been to the World Cup. Desiree Ellis has turned this whole thing around as far as how we feel about Banyana, how we see Banyana Banyana, because of the actual accolades and wins under her belt. So it doesn't make sense that these women are still protesting for money that's due to them. It doesn't make sense that this is the same script over and over again. And like you said, if things don't change at the top, at the bottom, what we'll see filter down is the same nonsense that we've been seeing time and time again. It's high time that, I mean, Banyana Bafana were protesting. It's been a long time since Banyana Bafana protested for their money, because I think at some point Benny led the protest and what. It's been a while. That one, somehow those files have been put out. Now it's Banyana's baby to deal with. So it's unfortunate that time and time again this happens. We already know in the local leagues, for the girls who are playing locally, there's not much money. The ones who are fortunate enough to be playing abroad are the ones who can make a proper living of football. But the rest of them, they were depending on the Banyana money. They were happy to be representing Banyana Banyana because of the money that comes with it. But if you have to fight for that even, that's why I see about Tembi and about Jermaine saying it's not worth it. You fly from wherever you're based to Africa to represent your country, and then you have to fight still to get what's due to you. So, yeah, those rumors and that noise validated, Jay.
Chuck, another scenario, and this is what again I want to get your point on. You know, does it make sense? Is it fair? Is it unfair? So you've got this situation, right? 2 clubs, as an example. Imakesi, who were languishing at the bottom of the league before they hired Owen to come on a 6-month contract, and then he led them to safety, finished in 13th place ultimately, but 6 months have elapsed and they could not come to a contract agreement, and Makesi are letting him go. And then you've got the case of Durban City. Of course, they were the champions of the Motsepe Foundation Championship. They are now in the PSL, having been promoted. And the coach who led them there, Usimo Dladla, he's been let go, right? And the reasoning that came from the chairman of Durban City is that he doesn't quite believe he's cut out for the level because he's never coached in the PSL before. So I want to ask the question, Chuck, is it unfair, these practices, or is it just business?
I think you can hear both sides of the argument, because if Makesi signed Owen Dagama to a 6-month contract, that means the job is just to keep us safe, or even if we go down and we drop into the lower division, we're done. And so he does deliver on what the mandate was, which is to keep Makesi in the top flight of South African football, and he does that, right? I don't know then if you coach that Clinton Lawson prior, who had won a Culling Black Label Cup, but he has then since said publicly, I'm stepping away from the job because I can't extract more from these players than what I've had. And that was them languishing at the bottom of the table. So Owen Dagama comes in to do a job effectively, right? The Sam Allardyce thing, keep us afloat. In my mind, if the guy took you from where you were and you were then safe, I think 2 points away from top 8, then you became effectively safe from the drop. Why move away from him? Or should then go to the idea of Udladla at Durban City? The guy who got you there, the guy who's familiar with the players, because when he came in, Jay, they were struggling as well. Durban City. Usimo comes in, stabilizes everything. They finish 4th, number 1. The next season, they win the actual championship to go directly into the PSL. Why part ways with that? Because one, he's dealt with 2 scenarios, right? Because that's what tends to be said about teams being promoted. It's not going to be as easy as you have it in that league, because when you're playing that stylish football, scoring goals, playing this particular style, when you get to the top flight, things change and things become difficult. Can you survive? Can you switch on that mode? Usimo has proven to me, Jay, that he can do both things. He can keep a team afloat or rescue their form, and also he can go on to win things. So for me, he has no experience, but when he came into the job, he found you guys struggling with the very same players, because it's not like at the NFT players, they overhaul players and they sign 10, 11 players. With the same core that he had, guys them to 4th, adds a bit of players here and there, goes all the way to win the actual championship. For me, the guy who knows the club best, the guy who knows the players best in terms of how to turn things around, how to go all the way on a winning run and win the actual title, is Usimo Dladla. So for me, Jay, it doesn't make sense to let go of the man. Yes, he has 0 experience, but stories go on to say he's going to Amazulu, which is a PSL club. So clearly someone has found some value in him. So if you're Durban City, you've since gone down to the first division, you've come back up again with a guy who's done it all, in terms of stabilizing, in terms of winning the actual cup, and that guy is going to an established PSL team. I think you've dropped the ball.
Yeah, Chuck, it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right, particularly in the case of Usimo Dladla, right? Because when I read the reasoning from the chairman at Durban City, he says he did well in the first division, right, in the lower league, and he showed himself to be good at that level. But he's never coached in the PSL, and I don't know what he's gonna do. And I want to take that risk. And similarly in the case of Owen Dagama, because you feel, and as someone who empathizes again in these discussions with labor as opposed to the employer, when Dagama does then do the business and does as well as he did, it feels as though you should reward him for that, you know. But it's not personal, Chuck. It is business. It is business, you know, because if the agreement, as you point out with an Owen Dagama, is here's the situation, here's what we need, right? We need you for 6 months, and we'll reevaluate at the end of that 6 months. And they did reevaluate. They went to the table of negotiation. Now we don't know what numbers were spoken, right? And therefore we don't know what Owen Dagama is going to get, where he's going. We don't even know what is the pay for PSL coaches. So I can't sit here and say he was lowballed or he was being greedy, you know. But what we do know is that they couldn't come to an agreement. And as the organization, they have every right to say, well, this is too rich for us, and we're walking away from this conversation, right? Same thing with like Usimo Dladla, that if the feeling, for whatever reason, as I'm saying, it feels like it's arbitrary, right, and random. But when you actually do investigate the comments, the feeling is that his level is over there, and yeah, that might feel personal, and it might feel personal to Usimo Dladla as well. But if the owner has deduced that in order for us to achieve our goal of staying in the PSL, what we need is a PSL ready coach or a coach with experience in the PSL. Now that begs the question, how do people get experience unless you give it to them, you know? But we've seen this in football, Chuck, where we've got coaches who are thought to be relegation specialists.
Yeah.
And you know you go and get them when you are in a particular situation,
Yeah.
you know? In the same time, Chuck, on the flip side, and which is why I can say it's just business, is because you can have a Jose Rivero who says after 3 years and now his CV is healthier than what it was when he first came to South Africa, and Al Ahly come calling like, I'm out. Even before the last game of the season,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, I
he
have to
can
leave
say,
now.
I'm out, because we thought it was a family thing. I like that. That was my premise, right? When we saw the statement after the MTN8 final and his emotions, and as I'm saying, the statement, Pirates included, like the distance between him and his family. And so when he leaves, the feeling is that, oh, he's going to be closer to his family, and he's not in Spain, but is in Egypt, which is closer to Spain than it's South Africa. And then since he's come out and said he had nothing to do with his family, right? It was just the next step in his career. Same thing with Ramovich, who said he wants to spend time with his
Why
parents.
do you have to lie, though?
I don't know why he had to lie. I don't know why he had to lie. And the thing is, when he left TS Galaxy, they had like started, I think, six games in a row where they didn't have a win, you know, and he left them in a ditch.
Yeah.
And then he went to greener pastures. Not personal, just business at the end of the day for him as well. That at some point, and we know before the start of the season, there was conversation that he was going to go to Raja Casablanca, and seemingly that was blocked, and he didn't seem happy to be in the job anymore. And so when the opportunity once again came his way to go to what he deduced was like a higher level, he took that, regardless of the fact that the team that he coached and that he loved or he connected to the fans with were now in a perilous situation. You know, it's just business, and that's what I think all of this is, Chuck.
It's just business, but there must be some ethics. There must be some guiding principles in terms of.
You would hope so.
Because if I win you the ultimate prize, the biggest prize that's available to us as Durban City, formerly Maritzburg City, that's the league. And you're telling me after having done that, the greatest thing, have Maritzburg won a domestic cup in the PSL? I don't recall. The greatest thing this team has ever had, and obviously they had to go down to get it. But we have a title. I bring you a title, and I'm out of a job. It doesn't quite make sense because Maritzburg, Jay, were relegated having had Premier League tried and trusted coaches at the helm. So this guy's a breath of fresh air. He's won something for you guys. He's familiar with the players. Why not stick to him? That's why I get it as it's business, Jay, but there must be some ethics because he has brought you this far. He's taken you to a particular level. It's not like Maritzburg are always competing in the top 8. They are, for most part, they're always battling relegation anyway. How much worse can Glada do? Because you're always on the brink of the drop. You're always fighting in the not always, but sometimes you're in the playoffs to save yourself. So I don't know, man. I think they're on some high. Farouk Adoja needs to, but they're expecting great things, but nah, man. I think if you come back to down to earth, these PSL managers that you want, they haven't won anything on their CV. They've got the coaching qualifications, they've got the experience, but what have they won? Because most of them, they do this carousel thing where they're not bringing much to the team. They're just switching chairs. The teams maintain their position. This guy has been with you when you were struggling, got you to fourth, stabilized. You won the actual league that was in front of you. Now you're now in the PSL. Why not him? He's got experience with you guys.
Chuck, there was a point where, and I speak as an Arsenal fan, when Jurgen Klopp became available, right, and Arsene Wenger was still in the job, and it was still around the time that Arsenal were consistently finishing in the top 4, right, but just about to take that dip. I think the last season with Wenger, I think Arsenal finished in 5th place. And I was ready in that moment, like, fire Wenger right now. Like, Klopp is available, fire Wenger right now, right? And similarly, when Pep Guardiola became available after his stint at Bayern Munich, I don't quite recall who was the coach at Manchester United. They should have fired whoever was like the coach, right? Like, regardless of the fact that we just hired him, or we just won a trophy, or we're on the way up. I think it may have been Jose. I think it may have been Jose, but when you sense that there's an opportunity to go for the kill or to stabilize yourself, and you better be sure though, right? You better be sure that the decision you are taking is absolutely the right decision, because if it goes south, then we're going to come back here and it's like, what were you doing? You know, you just look stupid, you know? So as I'm saying, like, I get it. I really get it in terms of if what you in your calculations have come to conclude is that, well, one, either this is not affordable in the case of a Dakama, or it's also not affordable in the case of a, like, we think with him at the helm, we might go straight back down again. There's no premise for that from where I'm sitting, right? I don't know what the chairman is privy to when he just feels that coaches who don't have previous PSL experience don't tend to do well in their debut season in the PSL. Then you go in a different direction. It doesn't feel right. Like, as I'm saying, it doesn't feel right. But the fact that coaches also do have an opportunity to walk away when it is suitable to them. It is business. The coach, the newest coach of Orlando Pirates, Abdesalam Wadu, he had an opportunity to stay on with the Imaruma, right?
Yeah.
And he felt that no, they were not honoring what he wanted from them, and he said, "Deuces, I'm out." And the moment that Irvin Koza came calling, is like, "I'm there."
We spoke to someone who says which he doesn't trust what is going to stay for the entire tenure if there are rumblings behind the scenes.
Exactly, and you brought this up. Like, you asked that person
because
that question
his
because his
record
resume
is that, yeah.
says that he doesn't stay, right? And the feeling is that he won't, because why do you anticipate that he will? Jose Rivera, like, he on his CV, he spends 3 years at a place and he leaves, and he spent 3 seasons at Pirates as well and he left. So not surprising, you know. So as I'm saying, if you're able to make a decision from this side, it should hold that decision should also be able to be made on the other side.
Decisions, right? We still haven't heard quite clearly from Kaizer Daung Jr. whether or not they're keeping Nabi, but it looks like. And they're backing him with signings, Jay. Rumors of these players have circulated, and we think the reports are concrete enough to speak on these players. We just need to hear an official confirmation from Kaizer Chiefs themselves, right? But among those players, Thabiso Monyane, Paseka Mako, Kono Velibai as well, who's since joined. There's Ethan Chislett as well. There is Flavio Silva as well, which is a foreign striker, yes, that they've gotten as well to try bolster their squad. Jay, are they moving in the right direction, number one? And if you were to profile one of those signings, who would you speak on in terms of Chiefs making those particular moves?
I don't know, Chuck. I don't know, right? Because in an earlier video of ours, I believe at the start of the year, around the January transfer window, I detailed how in the last two years, Chiefs assigned 20 players, and when you then include the graduations from the DDC, it's closer to 30. So they've signed squads worth of players, and it's just not worked out. You know, I feel it's like the Manchester United conversation, whereby when you hear United don't make signings. No, United make signings, but then you conclude that they don't make the right signings. And it's the same thing at Kaizer Chiefs, that they sign a whole host of players. Bongani Sam is leaving Kaizer Chiefs after playing 0 minutes, having been signed at the start of last season. Why was that decision made? You know, and when at the end of every season, if you're cleaning house, that's a problem, you know. And yeah, you're gonna sign players, and what we see from Chiefs is that they're not buying players. They are signing players who are free, you know, and that's curious as well in terms of what are those conversations like, those negotiations like, when it's actually money that needs to be paid. But also, I don't know what the books of Kaizer Chiefs are, and there's a feeling that teams tend to want to charge Kaizer Chiefs a little more than what a player's worth, because it's Kaizer Chiefs, you know, and they absolutely should not get the wool pulled over their eyes. But in terms of these players, Chuck, the two fullbacks from Orlando Pirates, my feeling is, man, if an Orlando Pirates who are chasing Mamelodi Sundowns and had as great a season as they did, and it's easy to forget that they had a great season because they only walked away with the MTN 8 at the start of the season. If they feel that these two players are surplus to requirements, hey, man, do you want to be picking up these players? What are your goals? You know, the case of Valibai, that feels like a lesson in patience, right? That wait it out, because Valibai, with the case with the Cape Town Spurs, they didn't really want to sell to Kaizer Chiefs, and I say that because they sold the two players to Stellenbosch. You know, they were able to do business with Stellenbosch, but not with Kaizer Chiefs, and I think maybe the price also they were quoting Kaizer Chiefs was ridiculous. And now they were relegated to the ABC Motsepe League, and those players became free agents because they're not able to afford to pay them. And now Valibai is or might be a Chiefs player going forward. So that one worked out for them. the two then that do stand out is an Ethan Chislett, who decided to come back to South Africa, and the main motivations are that he wants to be able to be seen by the coach Hugo Bros, and make it to Bafana Bafana, but also he's never played in South Africa. He's the son of a former footballer, the grandson of a former footballer. Was born in South Africa, but has spent the majority of his life in England. And wants a little flavor of home, and seemingly Kaizer Chiefs is the chosen destination. And then there's the striker, right? Flavio Silva. I don't know about
Another
that one,
gamble.
Chuck. I mean,
Another gamble.
I don't know much about him. Like, I know he's got 39 goals in 78 appearances in Indonesia. I don't know how strong the Indonesian league is, and the reason I'm suspect is because Chiefs have continuously tried to find the striker, right? The big target man, and it's not worked out. It didn't work out with Uranga. It's not worked out clearly with Morris. It didn't work out as well with Christian Saile. And there's also rumors that Igataro might also be joining in that position. And I know Nabi was successful with who's the striker? With the Fiston, right? There's no Fiston here.
Then they also had this Uruguayan player who played 2 games or 1 hour. Not the guy.
Oh no!
Remember?
Yeah, the what was his name? I remember his name now.
I forgot his name as well. But this gambling on this big target man, it's not quite gonna work.
Yeah, he was the worst, Chuck.
Yeah, I know.
I even forgot about that player. Like, he was the worst.
Yeah, I don't know. Mutinuchu kind of scam. But yeah, as much as they were surplus to requirements, Umunyana and Paseka Marco, we can't have these rivalries where players just cross platforms like that. Like, it's that easy from black and white to black and gold. You can't do that. Where
It's happened all over. It's happened over the years. Jabopule has played for both teams. Stiga has played for both
but
teams.
not straight from the one team to the other. That's blasphemy in football in terms.
And it tends to go in this direction, right? When it goes straight. Because I remember Pulani Mkhize from Pirates to Chiefs, Jimitao most famously. It's crazy to me that Jimitao is now more remembered as a Chiefs player, right? Whereas he was great at Orlando Pirates, and he was a future Orlando Pirates captain. But it happens, Chuck. Chiefs, they are play Pirates and team.
Yeah, but I mean, look, with Munyani, you have a bit of both players are coming off long-term injuries. That's the risk, right? Especially with Paseka Mako having hit the age of 31, if I'm not mistaken. I wonder how much you can extract from him, because the last we saw of him at the back end of the season was right. Was not great. You understood why Hoto was ahead of him. You understood why the other players who came in ahead of him when he then became fit. Munyani as well had a great stint. Like, when you look at the first 2 years of Rivero's season at the helm, injury as well. So I don't know, Guti, when you've seen Guti Pirates have then gone to sign Van Rooyen, and that's their preferred option when it comes to both players being fit. You wonder as Chiefs in terms of how far in terms of progress do you want to go, because you can get you in the top 8, those kind of players, but you must have more. You must want more. I understand the context of where Chiefs are in this season, but Chiefs are Chiefs. They always have to be challenging for something. It might not be realistic, but the fans expect that. It's a big name brand, which is why someone like Ethan Chislett wants to come to Chiefs, because he's expectant of something great happening at Kaizer Chiefs. So Ethan J comes to Chiefs with that history, right? With his grandfather, with him being an attacking midfielder, tends to bag a couple of goals, right? Where he's played, I think, at Port Vale, at championship level, if I'm not mistaken. I was very curious for me. Would you move from championship? Sorry?
League One,
championship and then League One. Yeah. So it's second division. It's very curious that you'd move from that place to then go to Kaizer Chiefs. Maybe the money is comparable. Maybe the Chiefs pool is big enough. Maybe, as you said as well, he wants to be seen by Hugo Bros a bit more closely. He wants to play for Bafana Bafana. I don't know. What will work in his benefit, right, is that Championship, League One teams, they play with a high tempo. And sometimes these other signings that have been a gamble, or they've had pressure placed upon them to shine, have quite struggled with the pace of the PSL. So for me, I think he could come in and shine. He could come in and be great. But for players to come in and be great at Kaizer Chiefs, it's a dime a dozen, Jay. It was Thabo Cele and who else? So it'll be a hard job to do that. But if they keep someone like Castillo, they've got Thabo Cele, then he's got a good platform to come in and shine, if he is that player indeed, right? If he is that guy who's going to come in and not pull the strings, but be their creative fulcrum for them at that 10 position. If he's got that base of Cele and Castillo, if you've got players like Umshin who comes through and gives us more of what he showed glimpses of. And I know we keep saying this about machine, right? He's got the potential. If you can therefore put it together, then Chislet can do something. But I have the same concerns with you, Jay, in terms of Abo Flavio. My man, I don't know.
We'll see, right?
Yeah.
We'll see. Another man, actually, a former Pirates man, who might also be joining Kaizer Chiefs, is Undlov, because that one also, and I think he might be a good addition. He's an engine. He was the standard player so often for SuperSport, SuperSport that struggled, and he was doing everything, especially with Mahaman missing for a majority of the season. And yeah, those additions, hopefully they do help Kaizer Chiefs. That's to be seen.
He went from Paris to SuperSport, so if he goes to Chiefs,
yeah, he's a former Chiefs man as well. But we'll see. Chuck.
Yeah.
If we go to Europe mainly, it's the Club World Cup, but the noise tends to be coming out of Europe, right? Because and the continuous conversation is the load on the players, just the amount of games and the concerns around that. And we heard Jurgen Klopp adding his voice to this, and now we've also heard from the man who heads up Bayern Munich, Karl-Heinz Rummenigge, and he has the take that, well, players are continuing to ask for large wage amounts, right? And then the agents as well are involved. I know most recently with the deal for Florian Wirtz, his agent backed 10 million, right? And this financial demand that continues to come from the players means that it needs to be met by the clubs. And the way you turn revenue is by putting on more games. And so essentially, the players are to blame. Karl-Heinz Rummenigge did say what needs to happen is everyone in football needs to come sit down and chart a new path forward. But Chuck, does he have a point? Do the players, rather than complaining, need to look at themselves as the reasons why there are so many games? Because it has to fund their wage demands?
Man, look, his solution is something I can get on board with, but his actual cause of the problem, what is the players? I don't know if that's necessarily true, because FIFA has been trying to get more games. FIFA, that is, right? Whether it's Nations League, whether it's an expanded World Cup, they try to be a breakaway league, and I think this is quote unquote the reformatting of the Champions League plus the Club World Cup is FIFA's response to the proposed Super League. So the people up top have realized that there's plenty of money in football, and so even without the demands of the players or more salaries or transfer fees or signing on fees, etc., the footballing bodies themselves have been wanting more games. I know the head of FIFA. Also, the 15-year-olds want to see more games. He's done the research. I'm like, who wants to see game upon game?
Wenger saying that, Chuck, is what got me. I was like, man, Arsene, you've drank the Kool-Aid of FIFA, and now you're out here just parroting what is being said in that office.
So when you look at just that thing, Jay, and there's no surprise why Kevin De Bruyne is here in South Africa dancing and just playing with the kids, because he's someone who's been very vocal about the Club World Cup. That's why you have a case like someone like Leroy Sané signed for, is it Gala or Fenerbahce? But it's still representing Bayern Munich. Kevin De Bruyne has signed for Napoli, but he could have effectively still been available for the Club World Cup. But it's not something he wants to do going into the new season with Napoli, because it's just too much football in the legs. And look, I get it back in the day, no one complained. But with modern medicine and trying to get the maximum out of players, with the faster game, with better knowledge about players' bodies and physical conditions, you want to then have rest. Jurgen Klopp has then said, not Jurgen Klopp, I think it was Pep Guardiola saying, in the NBA, they play about 80 games, which is a lot, right? But they've got 4 months off. They get to rest and recover and recoup all the energy that's required for the next season. So, Jay, with that being said, man, I don't know if you can squarely look at the players, because lots of players have protested and said, we're tired of playing the games, number one. Number two, I think as much as players do want more money and stuff like that, clubs ultimately have the final say. We saw the tussle with Mo Salah and Liverpool. If Mo Salah wanted more money, Liverpool could have easily said, no, we've got the money to buy Florian Wirtz and someone else. But in the end, they came to an agreement where Mo Salah wants more money. I don't know what the hold-up was. Was it money or contract length? But ultimately, my point is that Liverpool had the bargaining power to say yes or no to Mo Salah. They said yes. And so whether a player wants 10 million, 20 million, players can say, clubs, Roy, ultimately have the final say. There are rumors that Sancho does not want to leave to join Juve because he has to take a pay cut. The teams ultimately can say, Sancho, it's fine, because they've got the ultimate say. And Nakwana, they're the ones who agreed to a contract where Sancho's paid that much money. So for me, Jay, you can demand all you want. It's like always say with Desiree Ellis, If Desiree leaves, uzoyap. So if you're saying to me, I want to earn double my money, where are you gonna go? If not Saudi. So for me, ultimately, Jay, the solution about football needs to come together, because for me, ever since Neymar signed from Barca to PSG, football was broken in terms of transfer fees, inflated numbers, etc. But I do agree that football needs to come together, and it's not gonna work, because as much as petrol does come down, the taxi price does not come down. The price of eggs and bread does not come down drastically, because we're now on the up. So for the reform of football, I don't think people will come down and sit and say, "Well, Jay, you were earning 80,000, let's bring it back to 60." Who's going to agree to that? So the idea in theory is great. Can it be actually made to work? I don't think so, Jay.
There's a point, Chuck. Romanega does make a point in terms of the high wages, right? So in football, with the football revenues, right? I'll speak about Europe because their financials do get published. A ratio, for example, which is healthy for a football club, is in terms of wages to turnover. You don't want to exceed 70%, where 70% of your income is going to wages.
Mm-hmm.
I remember a few seasons ago with Everton. Everton are one of the clubs who've continuously found themselves in the red where their finances are concerned. I think like 90% of what they were making was going to wages, right? Which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the clubs are making that decision. They are making you're right. They are making the decision to pay the players these amounts. And you know what? Given you don't want to lose players, and your star players especially, you want to take care of them, and you want them to not then go strengthen a competitor. But we saw over the years, for example, how many times did Ronaldo sign a contract only for Messi to sign a contract, only for Ronaldo to then come back and sign a contract for Real Madrid and Barcelona? I was looking just the other day. I was reminded of how Barcelona found themselves in one of the reasons they found themselves in a situation where they have to be pulling economic levers, because Jose Bartomeu gave Samuel Umtiti, 600,000 euros a week. Why? You want to tell me that there was not a better decision that you could have made in that position? Now I know Umtiti was good at that point in time, but we're not talking about Franco Baresi here. Come on, and you made that decision. It seems similarly to how they got to a point, and that's the thing, right? Eventually they got to a point where they said to Messi of all people, we can't. We can't. And he was there crying and whatever the case may be. It's like, yeah, it's sad, it's heartbreaking, but we can't pay you this amount, because for the long-term health of this football club, it is best for us to part ways. So ultimately, the clubs still do hold the power. And the clubs are greedy, man. The federations are greedy. The reason we have an extended Champions League is not because they're trying to innovate football. It's because they were threatened by the Super League. And then they saw that, there's still more money to be had in the football space, and they added more games. Same thing with FIFA, and now it's a tussle for power, right, between UEFA as well as FIFA, and the people who suffer are the players at the end of the day. Do I think players shouldn't be earning as much as they are? I mean, you don't need 500,000 euros a week, But if there's 500,000 euros a week available there, I'd rather that it goes to the players than it goes back to the club owners, at the end of the day, right? So, yes, those wages do play a part, and football continues to need to get more money, but it doesn't have to be like that, because the decision makers are the ones who are doling out the cash, and they're the ones who continue to sign deals to bring in the money.
Speaking about money, star power, the players, Paul Pogba was a product of Man United, went to Juve, came back at a world record fee, right? And he was a star man, and he was great. I don't quite shine as much as you would have wanted for Man United, like he does regularly for France. Goes back to Juve, storied thing of going back and forth. And then there's the doping test that he fails, and that ultimately derails his career, along with the brothers wanting to extort money from him and all the drama. Hyenas. All that drama, man.
The man.
All that drama over Paul Pogba, and we were left with a period without Paul Pogba. But now Pog back. He signs a contract with AS Monaco. We're very emotional at the point where he was actually signing the contract, because finally good to be back. Jay, number one, were you itching to see Paul Pogba back, and how much impact can he make in that Monaco jersey?
I love Paul Pogba, Chuck. You know I love Paul Pogba. Like even when he was at Manchester, I hate Manchester United, but even when Paul Pogba was at Manchester United, like I literally tuned into Manchester United. One, because I love the game, but that was a big part was to see Pogba play, and that's why it was so frustrating whenever he was injured. You know, or he was not in the greatest form for Manchester United. But Pogba is one of my favorite players of the last 10, 15 years. You know. And because it's such a unique talent, like Paul Pogba at 6'3", being able to shift past the man and deliver a long pass like nobody, like in football, and like not many people in the history of football. And yeah, just loved watching his game, especially then when he was playing for France at the tournaments. I also loved listening to him when he was called up for the national team, because he just talk about what is happening in Manchester United and with his issues with his coaches or his teammates or whatever the case may be. And I realized, Chuck, there's a lot of people who feel the way that I feel, because the announcement by AS Monaco, right? It got such widespread love, like it went viral. And Pogba is one of those players who've seemingly transcended like the club that they play for or the colors that they are loyal to. You know, where like football fans just love them. You know, there's someone like N'Golo Kante where everyone loves N'Golo Kante.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is because people have this idea that N'Golo Kante is just like this sweet guy. He's always smiling. Like he doesn't bother anybody, you know. Whereas Pogba was different. Pogba had the hair and he's lived like out loud. But even that, right? Yeah. There was a feeling that the establishment is against this guy because it's different, and he's different. He's not bringing the sport into disrepute. He's not out here doing like sinister things. The first time that happened was when the drug ban happened, right? And even then, right? There's again the love for Paul Pogba is such that we are willing to forgive him. Right, whatever the reasons, and also when you then look into his story, like the man has been through so much, especially from like his family, and we just see him dancing with his brothers, like all of them looking like the same person, you know, and it's like, wow, this is beautiful, you know, and then you hear what you hear, like this man is out here on his own, it feels like, you know, so to see him back in football, Chuck, I'm happy for it. Like I was, my first reaction was, where does League One play? Like, do we have it on our screens? Like, do I need to go find a link to watch League One? Because I'll be watching AS Monaco games.
I mean, when I look at old, actually go back to like 3 seasons back, and Pogba was in a Man United shirt with Ronaldo, with Bruno, with Sergio, and I thought to myself, why wasn't this team good?
Because it's Manchester United. Because I told you, there's a black cat running through that organization, a dark cloud, you've broken multiple mirrors, and you've got like 7 times like infinite number of years of bad luck. It's Manchester United.
And like you said, Jay, they've been making signings. When you look at it, they've tried to assemble a super squad. It just never worked out. And one of those guys who was there for a solid stint was Paul Pogba. And Jay, that football that we saw at Old Trafford was great. Not often enough, not consistent enough, but it was amazing. It was good football, because I remember the season where there was Zlatan, there was Lukaku. I think in the first 5 games of the season, he scored 1 goal, but hit the post, I think, in consecutive matches. And like, if only those goals go in, it's a different narrative altogether. He's dominating on the EPL. Then there was that game where he had a hat-trick of assists against Leeds. And after
start of the season, I think three games and 7 assists. And we're thinking he's going to break the record. And should we be bringing Paul Pogba into FPL teams? But
then, the black cat tends to then walk past that dressing room again. But he not only was he a player that left you dreaming, what if at Man United, right? But he became such a big star that, Jay, I mean, we understand that Serie A is big enough, right? But not to those levels where Paul Pogba is a world-class talent, famous face, just from his 2-3 seasons at Juve. Because you think to yourself, what's going on in the world to the point where Paul Pogba is this big? The hype that surrounds him, the media, the attention on Paul Pogba. And so when he comes to Man United, he brings all of that and some more. But when he was playing for France, Jay, that was some great football. I think it was the last Euros, right, where he was scoring from long range, playing majestic passes where you're like, okay, this is the football that we wanted to see for the longest of time. Here it is, right? And it goes back to Juve, then their injuries and stuff like that. Another narrative of his story, right? But to see him back playing football, Jay, there's certain things that you can take away, like pace and power because of time of the game, because of age. but the quality and elegance, hence the Pirlos play for as long as they did. And yes, the ball was nicked off of him, Sergio Busquets, but he still is elegant, still is good at that age because it's just some things that are just deep inside you that are football that cannot be taken away from you. And I think what he brings to Monaco, as you said, is that passing range, that vision, is those touches still, that silky football from a guy, as you said, who is mechanically and according to his size shouldn't look that good, but he does. So be glad to see him play football. I think Monaco are they're about making noises on one, maybe in Europa somewhere outside than just looking for League One football. But I think it's a good story to see Pogba finally back playing football.
Yeah, Chaka 32. I hope we see a renaissance, right? I hope we see something like a Pirlo. I think Pirlo is, he's an anomaly, right? But I hope we see a Paul Pogba deep lying playmaker, and he's like spreading passes all over the place. He doesn't need to run, doesn't need to rely, or as you say, on his athletic gifts, which he had in abundance. That'd be nice. That'd be nice to say that the closing chapter was this, and maybe he earns another move from AS Monaco again in the same vein as a Pirlo who went to Juventus and lit it up, right? But we'll see. We'll see what impression we have of Paul Pogba as he makes his first stint actually in his home country playing professional football. Chuck, first impressions. The Springboks are back. Not a test. Essentially a glorified exhibition game. But they came through with a thumping victory against the Barbarians, and there's just a feeling when the Springboks are back playing, right? A friend of ours said, now the real rugby is about to begin. After a whole season of URC and top 14 and European, Champ Cups and Six Nations, no, now the real rugby is about to begin because it's the Springboks. In that game against the Barbarians, what were your first impressions, your big takeaways from the Springboks?
Sure. I want to start at the back end, in the second half after the bomb squad bombed and they made a wholesale number of changes in that starting 15. Manny Libbok's kicking looks so smooth, Jay. And I was like, this is what it can look like, along with the playmaking abilities that he's since shown for the green and gold. And I'm just thinking to myself that I know Sasha Feinberg Mgomezulu is the one that is earmarked to take the team forward, but it wouldn't be bad to have Manny Libbok if he can put his game together. Then you understand why going into the 2023 World Cup, they put everything in terms of we're putting our money on Manny Libbok because I saw what it could be. It was clean, Jay. It was not in his head. He didn't stay at the post for so long that he's running down the kicking clock. But he was just playing smooth, Jay. And I think to myself, I hope it works out.
Yeah,
but
Chuck,
everyone's favorite,
Manny is a unique talent at 10. My personal feeling with Manny Libbok, having watched him, is number one, right? He's the best kicker out of hand, bar none. What left foot, right foot, distance, finding touch, whether it's the up and unders, whether he's clearing his lines, and he's not trying to be too inventive or creative. There's no one who can match him. And then that playmaking ability is unique. And the thing is, right, is the kicking for posts, that if you get that right, you're probably talking about top 5 best player in the world.
And as you say that, Jay, remember Rasi said that we're not expecting too much magic from Sasha. That's the exact blend that you want in a player, like with Mani. Mani is consistent in terms of what needs to be done for the game, for rugby. Then he's got that fleet-footedness where he's got the run, he's got the playmaking ability, the creativity. If Sasha can model his game around that guy, sky's the limit. In the 9 jersey, though, Vonenbeck, not for me. Not for me. I didn't quite shine. Obviously, he's got time. He can get better. But in that play against the Barbers, I think he could have been more responsible with the ball. He's up and under kicks. Is that what it's called, no? When you collect from the ruck. Not the best.
Box kicks.
Box kicks, thank you. Not quite the best. But I think we can be patient with him. He was not utterly horrible. Time. But when the guy who came through, it looked much, much better, although he had 20 minutes to play. But I think he'll learn. He'll get better at this game. And everyone's favorite, everyone wanted to see Wasanath Ntavaganye come through in the Springboks jersey to play. Not too bad at display. I think you're happy with that first outing in the green and gold. Didn't dominate all the scrums as you would hope or rather expect of the Springboks, but that was great. Lot Diaga, great to see him back in the Springbok jersey, although Uyoshaya to prayer with Ngentogo and he had to go out for a HIA assessment. You're like, dude, are you that hungry for the game? But The stalwarts, Jay, or the regulars, the Springboks, Chisholm, Colby, Kurtley Arendse, fluid on the wings. Still magic, still looking good. So, Jay, all in all, I mean, that was great. We kept them out for large parts of the game. They scored only late on in the game. Otherwise, it was almost a shutout. So, Springboks still purring, still looking good. But the new additions, Jay, have me wondering and very much positive in terms of what Springboks could bring in the future.
Yeah, Chuck. For me, it's the professional approach to this game. Because as I say, it's an exhibition game, right?
Yeah.
And I guess the Barbarians, you tend to just like give it some air, throw it around, have fun, you know. And I don't know. I think this is the first visit of the Barbarians to South Africa. Because usually when you see teams play the Barbarians, even the Springboks, it's the end of year tour, right? Where you've played all your important games and it's just a run out, you know. But this one comes at a time where you are then preparing for, I think, 15 test matches coming up this year. And we know as well you are in that World Cup cycle, which with Rassie having taken over the reins again as not just like the director of rugby, but the head coach, wants to go and win a trifecta of William Webb Ellis trophies, right? And the approach, therefore, was that of a team that is focused on its goals. And yeah, we're not here to play around, because I saw an interaction on social media where the Barbarian social media team was like, we thought we are going to have like uncontested scrums, you know, and where Rassie was posting videos of the players going through the scrum techniques and whatnot. And that first scrum destroyed the Barbarians. As you say, the Barbarians did recover in as the game went on. But that, right, as well as you see Chisholm Colby is in mid-season form already. He's just continuing to do Chisholm Colby stuff, and it's just brilliant. You know, you even think Jesse Creel also had a good game in the 13 jumper. And that was the main takeaway from me. Like, you talk about the new players, right? The integration of the new players is in a game where there's not much pressure, but what was simulated is test match conditions, which again speaks to the planning and the focus of the Springboks. And then, Chuck, there's the matter of Esterhuizen coming on as our flank. Rassie's an inventor, right? And Rassie is hell bent on putting forward rugby's version of total rugby. Hybrid players, we know we already 100%. Have Ekwaka who covers the flanks as well as the wings because of his experience in sevens, right? Now Esterhuizen, because of his size, if we are being honest, of course we know he's a center, as a backline player. And that's what Rassie said, that he's a backline player who can play as a forward. But now he is there on the side of the scrum. We'll see if he's able to do the other things that flankers do. He's able to seal off a ruck. He's able to go fetch a ball. What is his involvement in lineouts? I don't think we'll see him in the major games, packed down with the scrum. But worst comes to worst, then you have that player. But the continual pushing of the envelope, because we saw last season with the Chisholm Colby at scrum half, we see him throwing into the line out as well. And this is the idea that Rassie wants to have. Even when he's talking about Ntlabakanye, we know the physicality, but what we spoke about, it was his battle rates, but he also spoke about his ability in open play, his touch and his feel for the game. And it's a scary thing that Rassie is trying to build with the Springboks. And once again, as I'm saying, the inventiveness of it all is something that stood out.
Yeah, Jay, when I think about what you've just detailed in terms of when he was pack heavy with the 6-2 or 7-1 split, he's got players in there who can play in the back line, as you said, should worst come to worst. And so if he does traditional, maybe 4-4, 5-3, Esterhuizen can do either job. And so he's planning for any eventuality, any opposition. All players are just flexible. So, yeah, no, maybe the three-peat is coming, Jay. Maybe.
It's looking scary, but not for us. You have made it to the end of Tour Front this particular week. If you have made it here and you've not yet done so, or you are new to the channel, please do press that subscribe button. Please do like the content, do share it far and wide, and do leave your comments in the comment section. And if you want to continue the conversation with us on social media, you can find us across all social media platforms. It is at 2UpFrontPod. I am at J_Mzulu. Chuck is at Chuck2Up. From myself, Jay, I'm outie.
There are protests saying free our girls. We're just saying pay the girls. Do the right thing, Safa. Pay the girls, give them their money, and watch them shine.